Hi, welcome to ThinkTech. We are raising public awareness about technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. This show is Center Stage. I am your host, Donna Blanchard, very proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater. We are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, also very close to Kumukuhua Theater. Please remember that we broadcast live on the internet every day. Our shows are streamed on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. If you would like to see any of our previous broadcasts, check out our archives. Go to thinktechhawaii.com. And if you would ever like to join us in the studio audience, email Jay, that's J-A-Y, at thinktechhawaii.com. My guest today is WIll Caron. Will is the editor of Inhonolulu Magazine. He writes about a little bit of everything for Inhonolulu and is responsible for editing the additional content he procures from Inhonolulu's diverse pool of writers. He's also a senior political correspondent for the Hawaii Independent and writes and draws both editorial cartoons and comic strips about Hawaii's politics and the social issues of the day. Welcome, WIll Caron.
Thank you very much.
I'm very happy to have you here. I really am. I'm not just, I do say that to everyone, but I really mean it. So I have to say that I enjoy reading in Honolulu. You guys get a little bit of everywhere. You have a lot of focus on the arts.
We do, yeah.
Entertainment, nightlife. That's very awesome. My experience with you as a writer has been you've reviewed a couple of our shows, and I thought that both reviews were very insightful and thoughtful.
Thank you.
One was better than the other, we'll say that, and I really appreciate both of them. I appreciate your voice.
I appreciate you letting me come to watch the plays and contribute that way, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of conversation, I think, is what art is all about, what the conversations that it leads to.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about Inhonolulu Magazine. How long has it been around?
We started in January of 2013, although at the time I wasn't directly involved with it. I was working for the Honolulu Weekly at the time. So we've been going for about almost a year and a half now. Recently we just switched over to a new website. We've been trying some different things this year, trying to sort of feel our way into our comfort zone. So the new website is launched. It's doing well. It looks a lot better than the old one, and that's that's inhmag.com. So it's a little shorter, easier to remember too. So, and besides that, like you said, we focus a lot on the arts, entertainment, music, and nightlife. We do food reviews. And we have a section called Metro, which is basically just about what's happening in the city, new developments with Kaka'ako, as well as profiles on businesses, interesting businesses or new businesses that are popping up and trying to make their claim in the market. So yeah, we're just trying to connect engaged, thoughtful readers to the city that they love and the city that they are a part of.
How are you reaching people?
Well, what exactly?
How are you advertising? How are you marketing yourself?
Well, right now we're basically just trying to turn out great content. I mean, that's sort of the first step. There's no real point in marketing if you don't have the great content. So we're working a lot on developing our content, and we're using the means that are available to us right now as a small company that's just starting. We don't have a large budget. So we're doing a lot of social media, a lot of word of mouth, and just tapping whatever connections that we have on a personal basis. That was my phone restarting. Personal basis, for example, yourself, doing things like this was greatly appreciated for getting the word out about our publication. We also are partnered with the Hawaii Independent. We're a part of this sort of, right now it's somewhat nebulous, but it's taking shape slowly. It's basically an association of publications that are very different in what they try to achieve, I think, but have a similar goal of connecting those people that are engaged, that sort of demographic of avid people that are interested to their city in different ways. So Inhonolulu focuses on arts and culture and entertainment and nightlife, and the Hawaii Independent is obviously politics and social issues and things like that, and that's where I do some of my cartooning is for them. And then there's a couple others. There's a blog called The Hum, which is run by Gary Chun, who is the longtime Star Bulletin reporter. So, you know, we're sort of developing this community, and with that community, we're able to share some advertising, cross-promote, link to each other, and basically build off of each other's audiences. So that's one of the major ways that we're sort of focusing on right now. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Collaboration. Ikaika has been a guest on the show.
Yeah.
Also, and do you think that happened within the media even 10 years ago, that people were collaborating like this?
Well, it's somewhat hard for me to answer that. I didn't really get into media until I was in college, so only about 7 years ago. So I'm a little short on your time frame that you're asking about.
Okay, the answer is no.
Okay, the answer is no. I was going to say that I think...
I really don't think so.
I was going to say that definitely from my opinion, I think that within the past maybe 5 years, there's been a large surge in sort of independent, small brand publications, mostly online. But also there's some in print that have been coming out recently, like Abstract, that are just... They're not the old sort of style of print newspaper journalism. They're creative, they're different, they're new, they're fun. They focus sometimes on more niche things, which I think is part of what we've had to do to adapt. When you look at the Star Advertiser coming out of the Star Bulletin and the Honolulu Advertiser and things like that, it's intimidating. It's this huge block of newspaper power, and so there's these sort of other fringe publications that I think that have sort of started to spring up as a response to that. So I think and collaboration is a big part of that for sure. Yeah, we all kind of have to stick together in some ways. So
yeah, have you ever written for the Star, or do you have any desire to?
Well, I suppose I would never say no to any opportunity like that. It's not high on my list compared to other things that I would want to do right now, and I've definitely focused more on Inhonolulu and The Independent. Those are my two primary things, and and then also writing occasionally for Abstract and Mana. That takes up a fair amount of my time, but a freelance gig is a freelance gig, so I wouldn't say no. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. The Star Advertiser is a supporter of Kumukuhua Theater, and it has made a huge difference for us because you reach so many people through that. And I understand, I love Abstract and Inhonolulu and Hawaii Independent, but when you really want to reach a lot of people, there's no other way really to do it. Yeah, well, when you have, like almost 100 years of collective history between the two publications that it's formed out of, that's a lot of tradition for audience. You have a massive reach with them, and that's very useful in a lot of ways. I think that there's definitely still a lot of use for the Star Advertiser and for a print publication that can reach that many people. Yeah. That's still a big contributor to what goes on. So. And they do have some fabulous writers.
They do.
All of these have some fabulous writers.
Definitely, yeah.
I think I enjoy a smaller niche periodical because I can go to it and a lot of the information has already been reduced for me, and as I said to Ikaika, you are really buying into his taste in the story. And in Honolulu, you're the editor, so we're looking at your taste and James Charisma's taste. And I think when you look at the larger paper, there's so many different things to choose from that can be really wonderful. It can also be overwhelming on a daily basis.
Sure, yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I think that with the Star Advertiser, things like that, I mean, it's just a different game. It's just a different style. Both have uses. Like you said, with the smaller independent publications like our own, you sort of get a more intimate connection sometimes with the writers that we have. I try to encourage all of our writers to really develop their own sort of voice, especially for columns, but even just for regular articles as well, just so that, when you read an article by Ed Hickman, DJ Fu Manchu, about film or dance or whatever, you kind of know what you're gonna get, but at the same time, he's a good writer, so he's gonna surprise you. But I think that building a following, part of building a following for your website involves building a following for your writers as well. And that might be more challenging with the star advertiser, just like you said, because of the sheer volume of articles in each paper and the amount of writers that you have, and then there's online writers as well. But at the same time, you have people like Derek DePledge, who I read his blog all the time because it's incredibly insightful, I think, most of the time anyway, and useful for sure. And I think he has a distinct style, so it's not, it's not exclusive to our style of journalism and publication. It's there with both, I think, as well. Yeah.
If you had to say, name a mission for Inhonolulu, what would it be?
Our mission is kind of to, like I said earlier, just to sort of be this connection for the people to their city. But I think our goal, in order to achieve that mission, is to become the go-to source for information. So ideally, we would want, we've been releasing these weekend guides each week, usually on a Thursday, but sometimes on a Friday, depending on if most of the events are centered on Thursday to Sunday or sometimes Friday to Monday, like with Memorial Day weekend, for example. So every week I put together a guide, usually about 8 to 10 articles or 8 to 10 items that are sort of like our curated, our best, what we would consider the best events that you should go check out this weekend. And obviously they're somewhat geared toward our demographic, which is like 21 to 35, roughly. But we also try to keep it diverse. I usually have a couple things from the Honolulu Museum. I have a couple things going on at Republic, a bunch of stuff going on downtown as much as possible. I put Civil Beats Civil Cafe with David Ige that happened last week. That was on the Memorial Day weekend guide, just because I thought that was a really cool event to go to, and it was just something different to throw in. So ideally, with things like that, we want people to wake up on a Thursday and say, well, the weekend's coming up and I don't have any idea what I want to do. Where should I go to find out? inhmag.com. So that's kind of what we're shooting for eventually, and we're working towards that by, like I said, really trying to cultivate great content first and then do our best to spread it as much as we can with the resources that we have at this point. And it's growing. It's definitely growing. We're getting more and more views every day, more and more likes on Facebook, followers on Twitter. So eventually we'll get to a critical mass where that will start to take effect more than it is now. Yeah. But like I said, we're doing pretty well.
So how many hits are you getting a day?
Unique users, we're getting several hundred a day. Each week, I think we have like 1.5 thousand uniques. Monthly, it's kind of, it varies too, obviously. On like a Saturday and a Sunday, a lot of times I won't post anything because it's the weekend and I've been working all week. But so for
it's okay, you can do that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But so on a Saturday or Sunday, we'll have much less. We'll have far less unique views because we haven't published anything new. Yeah. So even if somebody, and we'll still get a fair amount on the homepage. But once people see that there's nothing new, they're not going to usually click on something. So we don't get that sort of turnover. So the monthly is averaged down a little slightly from that. It's probably closer to like maybe, I don't know, 25,000, yeah, something like that, which is not bad actually. It's pretty good. So,
that's not bad at all. Yeah. And I'm sure you can tell if these are people in Hawaii hitting, or?
Yeah, most of them definitely are from Hawaii, but we get a fair amount of views from the mainland. My whole family tends to read all of my stuff, which is awesome. And so we get some California hits from them. And random, like certain articles, this article I wrote, I think in December, was a Q&A with John DeMello from Mountain Apple Company about the 20th anniversary of Facing Future. And, excuse me, we got an incredible amount of hits from Japan randomly because this guy named Shu Suzuki, who runs a music blog in Japan, emailed me and asked me if he could republish it in Japanese, and I said, of course, that's awesome. So, for that article, we got like this huge surge in Japanese views, which was really great, actually.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. I'm just going to take it out of my pocket.
That's okay. You know what? We're going to take a break.
Okay, perfect.
You can turn your phone off.
Okay. Well, it was off. It just keeps restarting.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Center Stage on ThinkTech Hawaii. Be right back.
Aloha, my name is Willow Chang Alion, and I host a show called The Art of Life. We air live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. And what we do is basically we focus on individuals who create a unique sense of place for Hawaii. These are movers and shakers, artists, innovators. They are also traditionalists. They're all involved in the archival process, and they make this place a unique place, one that makes Hawaii a richer place to be. I hope you do join us, and certainly tell your friends about the show, whether they live here or they live abroad. It's a way to give back to our community. We're keeping it pono.
Hi, we're back. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series. I am Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhui Theater, and I am talking with WIll Caron, who is the editor of Inhonolulu Magazine. That is inhmag.com, the new website, which does look really nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
By the way. So what about, I want to go back in just a moment and hear about how the path that led you to this.
Okay.
But do you have any relationship with Huffington Post or Civil Beat?
Not officially, no. I am currently talking to some of the editors at Civil Beat about contributing some of my artwork to their site, but that's still just in early talks at this point, so nothing official, no.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
So let's go back. Little WIll Caron is in school. Tell me about your family.
Okay, my father is a professor at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in the English department. And my mother is an elementary school teacher at Inhonolulu School in Makiki. She teaches French to K through 6. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And other kids in your family?
I have one sister, 5 years younger than me. She's currently a sophomore. Finishing up her sophomore year because they're on quarters at the University of Oregon. So. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Any writers in the family?
Well, definitely my father. He became a full professor, I can't remember, maybe 5 years ago. I was just starting off at Manoa when that happened. And in order to do that, he had to write a book. So yeah, so he definitely writes. He's contributed to a number of journals, mostly about humor and 19th century American literature, early 20th century American literature. So yeah.
Humor within 19th and early 20th century?
Yeah, so I guess his topic of interest would be the literature of that time period, but with a focus on humor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like Mark Twain is like his kind of his deal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oscar Wilde.
Well, that's English, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely. He definitely, I think would would say he would enjoy Oscar Wilde as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a bigger Oscar Wilde fan than
yeah.
Mark Twain fan. I can't help it.
Well, plays, right? So.
Yeah, I can't help it. Well, Mark Twain wrote some plays too.
I suppose so. Yeah.
I was actually I was managing director of another theater several years ago, and we did a Midwest premiere of one of Mark Twain's plays that was just released.
Huh.
It's called Is He Dead?
Huh. I haven't heard of it. Yeah.
His foundation held on to it, and it's his last play to be released.
Very cool.
Was just released like in 2010.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, little side note there. When did you start getting into writing? When did you notice that you liked it?
That's tough. That's really tough to sort of pinpoint it like that. I guess I've always sort of had an affinity for that side of academics. I mean, definitely compared to math and science, writing has always been sort of my strong suit. Part of that is having a father who writes and is an English professor, but just also I think it's just natural. But again, hard, but throughout my academic career, I was always kind of good at it, but I didn't really start getting into writing journalism at any rate until I went to University of Hawaii and started doing Kaleo. I actually was offered a position with the high school newspaper at Iolani, where I went to high school, but I wasn't really interested in it at that time.
Oh.
So I didn't do that. And Kaleo is actually an interesting story too. I didn't actually join Kaleo to write originally either. I joined Kaleo to do comics. I applied just to be a cartoonist my very first semester at UH Manoa, and just went from there.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
So let's talk about comics. When
Okay.
were you one of those kids who was always drawing on your notebook?
Yeah, that's easier than I've always been drawing, definitely from a young age, like 2nd or 3rd grade, buying how to draw books and just practicing, going from there. Yeah, I've always been very, very interested in that. Something about using those skills to create a visual image is just really rewarding for me. So I've always been a big fan of that. I went to UH for art. That's what my degree is in fine art. So, yeah.
So why do you prefer? This is your preferred mode of communication.
You could say that. Yeah, I think in some ways I might be. I don't want to use the word better, but I'm certainly more prolific at writing. You know, I can do articles daily, fairly easily, and that's not really a problem. Drawing takes a lot longer for me, actually. I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to art, so it tends to take me a longer time to do that. But I'm getting better. But I guess preferred mode of communication, you could say that. Yeah, that's you know. So for example, sometimes a story will come up, and Ikaika will want me to write. Ikaika Hasi from the Independent will want me to write a story on it, and I'll think to myself, actually, I think this would be really good as an editorial cartoon instead. And one of the nice things about working with Ikaika is that usually if I say that, he'll say, okay, go ahead and do it. So then I get an opportunity to do some art, which, like you said, is my preferred mode of communication. So then I get to have fun with a drawing for a couple days instead of writing an article. So.
Interesting. So do you think, I think some people think in words, other people think in pictures, some people think in, you know, movement or places.
Yeah.
Do you think you think in pictures?
I haven't really considered it, but I guess probably that would be a fair statement. When I'm writing scripts for comics that don't have anything to do with politics, just like creative writing style, I do tend to think of those scripts in images, in sort of like if I was the cameraman for a movie, how would I stage that? And with editorial cartoons too, it sometimes works out that way. Usually I'll start more with a word-based thought process for editorial cartoons, like, you know, these are the players that are involved, this is the connection between them, this is the parallel to something else, and then that parallel becomes the image. There's a lot of the editorial cartoons, the images are sort of metaphors for what's actually happening, and that's what makes them funny. So once I get to that picture part though, once I get to that parallel thing and I'm creating the metaphor through the image, then I definitely start to think more cinematographically. Cinematographically, thank you for catching me there. So that, you know, I'll think like, oh, what would be the best angle to draw this in? You know, do I need to include some depth of field here? I really do start thinking about things like that. So I guess your statement is a fair one. Yeah.
Okay, so you think in pictures. I don't think I think in pictures.
Really?
I think in words. I think in, you know, kinesthetics will come to mind before a single
Again,
image.
play is staging. Right?
Yeah, yeah, movement.
Yeah.
So when did you start? When did you start tying a political opinion? I mean, how young were you when you started having a political opinion?
That was not super young. That was not at a super young age. For most of my drawing life, I was not thinking about things like that at all, really. That probably, I can tie that fairly solidly to my first year actually as editor-in-chief of Kaleo. So I wasn't actually comics editor there anymore. I applied to be editor-in-chief my senior year. I actually had 2 senior years. I graduated in 5 years. So my first senior year, I applied to be editor-in-chief, got it. And during that year, I still wanted to do some art, but obviously being editor-in-chief, I didn't have nearly the time to be doing cartoons on a weekly or tri-weekly basis like I had been doing as comics editor. So at that point, and at that point also I was doing more writing, doing more editing of other people's work, obviously. And that was also, what would that have been? That would have been the fall of 2010, so there would have been an election, a midterm election that year. So we were doing some coverage on that. I think that was when Governor Abercrombie was first elected. So we're doing some coverage on that, and you know, from those sort of different influences, different stimuli that I was a part of during that year, I started sort of coming up with a strategy or a viewpoint that would allow me to include politics into my art. And the first real success was I did an editorial cartoon about the Tea Party, formation of the Tea Party, which was sort of happening right in that time period, you know, late 2010, early 2011. The cartoon was called John Boehner's Original Tea Party Recipe, and it was basically pointing out some of the tactics that the traditional Republicans had been using to, in my opinion, stir up some fear, sort of this fear-mongering strategy that they had in order to drum up votes for themselves, but actually ended up fractioning off a portion of their party into the Tea Party. And so I think I just closed. Sorry about that. The cartoon is basically pointing that.
Okay.
No, sorry, hear that.
Give it to me.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
Okay.
Try not to touch the wire anymore. Anyway, it was an award-winning cartoon. It won a college award nationally, and it took a second place at the Professional Publishing Awards here locally. So at that point I was kind of like, okay, I can do this. This is something that I can definitely do, and that I had a lot of fun doing as well. So from there, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And Kaleo, don't they come out every day? Isn't that, is it weekly?
So Kaleo used to come out daily. That was back when I was in high school still, when they still had their own press on campus. For economic reasons mostly, the press closed, was no longer printing Kaleo, so they had to get a contract with the Star Advertiser, or actually no, it was the Honolulu Advertiser at the time. And that worked for a while, but we had to cut our number of days down to 3, so then it went down to 3 times weekly. And that continued on through my time there as well. So we were doing a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. We actually had to switch contracts over to Maui News to print our newspaper, and then they would ship it over by barge. Actually, no, by overnight plane, which is the cost. It is truly like, once I was editor-in-chief and I sort of got to see the budget side of things and was working with the advertising side and the advisors to sort of create the next year's budget. It was unbelievable how much money the print overhead is. It's a huge part of the budget. Yeah. It was to have it printed on Maui and flown to Oahu overnight was still cheaper than what the Star Advertiser's revised contract would have been with us after they bought out the Star Advertiser, or the Honolulu Advertiser. So now, just this past year, I'm still in contact with some of the advisors there. My good friend Rob is still the ad manager there. He was telling me now they've decided to go down to once a week starting next year, which I think is a good idea personally. I don't think that the 3 times weekly formula contributes anything more than the just doing once a week would. I think that the benefits of once a week are greater than the benefits of 3 times a week, given the costs associated with it.
Yeah.
And that way, you know, they can sort of do a Honolulu Weekly model actually, where they have a larger issue. You know, because sometimes we'd be putting out an issue that was only 8 pages long for Kaleo, and it was like, why are we doing this? Is just a waste of print money, really. Yeah. You don't really have any space to say anything anyway. So now they can do a larger issue, just once a week, really sort of get in depth with things, take their time to write a good article. I think it'll be a positive for them in the long run, definitely.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree that once a week is good. So when you're editor of, you started off with Kaleo, and now for in Honolulu, how are you determining what is getting written?
For the most part, I try to build a list of assignments, a list of ideas, assignment topics in either art and fashion, which includes film as well, music, food and drink, and then the metro section. And I just come up with a list of ideas, places that I've heard about. You know, I try to keep an ear to the ground, and anytime someone tells me about a new place that's opening up or a new thing that's happening, I try to put it on the list. And every couple of weeks I'll send out an email to our writers, like, this is the updated list, in case you haven't been tracking it on Trello, which is the website that we use. I'm not sure, do you know, are you familiar with Trello? Mm-mm. It's basically just a online organization resource, honestly. It just keeps you organized. You can use it for a bunch of different things. So all the ideas are up on Trello, and then I'll send out emails. People will say, I want to do this one, I want to do that one. If it's a new writer, I'll sort of work with them a little bit more on how to structure the article, keep a closer eye on them to make sure that they're doing it in a way that's consistent with our style for the website. For the more seasoned writers that have been working with me for almost a year now, I'm not really worried about them at all, honestly. They're all super capable, actually. So.
Each of the articles are about 500, 750 words?
It really depends, and I usually will give people a range depending on the type of article, but I try not to be really concrete about that. I think as long as it's close to the range that I give them, it doesn't really matter. Certainly for space, it's a website. We can make it as long as we want in terms of space. I don't want them to be too long, because then people just don't read them. But I try to sort of leave that more up to the writer. I don't want to be like a iron-fisted editor where it has to be exactly 1,000 words, or I'm not publishing it. I'm not going to bother with that. For like reports on a show, where you don't tend to have any quotes because you were just in the audience at the concert, you didn't actually meet the band usually. It's just this is what happened, and you take a bunch of pictures, that kind of a post. Those tend to be really short, 300 to 500 words. There's nothing really else to say after that. If you do a phone interview with the band before the show, though, which is in some ways I think is more useful, but also a little harder to set up, those can definitely be longer, because then you get all this incredible insight from the artist himself, and that's much more interesting to read than just description of what the show was like. So yeah.
When it comes to opinions, I mean, you've voiced some strong opinions. Yeah. Do you encourage that from your writers?
For reviews, definitely yes. I mean, it's a review, so it's going to inherently represent your opinion on something. What I try to do, though, is I say don't rely on adjectives and adverbs to explain why you do or do not like something, because those are incredibly subjective, and what's salty to you could be not to someone else. So I try to tell them to use comparisons to other things that are more widely known, especially for like if you're reviewing a play or a film. If it's a play or film that no one's heard about, but it has parallels to a very famous work, use that to compare to, so it gives people an idea of what you're talking about that's more concrete and less subjective. So it's going to have their opinion, but that doesn't mean that you want to go on a rant and just blather on and on and on. You want to be able to bring some concreteness to that review for people to understand better what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We're going to go to another break real quick. I'll give you a chance to drink your water.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is Center Stage on ThinkTechHawaii.com.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Yamashita, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series. I am Donna Blanchard, your host and proud managing director of Kumukuhoi Theater, and I am talking with WIll Caron, the editor of Inhonolulu Magazine, and also contributor to Mana Magazine.
Yes.
How long have you been doing that?
So after the weekly closed, that was one of the first freelancing gigs that I got. I signed the freelance contract with them almost a year ago. It was last summer. But they're a not a quarterly, but a bi-monthly, so they don't come out all that often. So I've only actually written 3 articles for them. I wrote one in the fall, one in January, and then one just recently about the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education. It was about actually it was about Halau Kumana, which is a immersion school in Makiki, and about they played a large part in setting up the student day for WIPC and about having it brought to Hawaii and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. So only 3 articles for them, but yeah.
And so you said, you sent this to me, his dream is to produce action and adventure graphic novels that are smart, thoughtful, and include topical critiques of both society and human nature.
Yeah.
Well, not to put too fine a point on it or anything, what do you feel it is that you have to, the WIll point of view, and this is where I'm going with the how do you select what is going what is going in. It's your taste, it's your interest level that's driving that.
Well, real quick, let me say too that the list is it's not like, let's say there's an event that I hear about that I'm definitely not going to go to myself. I'm still going to put that on the list. So I'm not like, I just want to make that clear. I'm not tailoring it to my point of view. In fact, I think that's a bad thing. I like to have as much diversity, especially from different writers, as possible. But for the comic thing, that's sort of an idea that came out of the fusion between my interest in journalism and my interest in art, and being able to make a point with your art. My preferred medium is definitely cartooning. My preferred medium within art, which was actually somewhat of a challenge at UH Manoa. They don't exactly teach that or really respect that in a lot of ways. Really? So that was somewhat of a challenge, actually. But within cartooning, I think there's a large potential for storytelling and for including relevant points about society, critiques on the way things are within your story. It's the same. It's not so different from a movie. Film is obviously, I've talked about it a bunch. Film is a big influence on me, and certain films in particular that tend to do that are big influences on me, and that's just something that within the past 5 years I've decided that is important to me as a storyteller and as an artist, and so I'm working on all the different things that I learn. Particularly working for the Hawaii Independent, because again, it's more political and social issues based versus entertainment. All the things that I learn writing for the Independent, I sort of tuck away in a file, and not necessarily that I'm going to directly draw on them, but it's real life. It's real things that are happening. It's people's real reactions to development, to an election, to a housing situation, to all of that sort of stuff. And I think if you can bring that into a story, it really makes it just come alive in a way that sheer fantasy can't always. And which isn't to say that my stories are going to be, completely like real. I'm not going to draw a story that's rooted in realism necessarily. The story I'm working on now is. It's the skeleton of it is a classic superhero team story, but it's got geopolitics in it. It's got economics in it. So it's Alan Moore, who is the author of Watchmen and a couple other famous graphic novels, but that one actually won a Pulitzer. I think it was a Pulitzer, and it's it's on like Time's 100 list of best novels. So there's this opportunity for cartooning and for comics to be more than what you typically think of them as, and so that's been a big goal of mine also, is to do something like Watchmen, where your graphic novel really has an impact on people in a way that typically cartoons don't, and it's sad because there's no reason why they can't. It just takes a little more effort, I think.
Well, you know what? I think I have a hard time with graphic novels myself, and I've tried.
Okay.
It's a different mode for my brain to function in that, and it doesn't want to go there. I want the far side.
Okay.
When I go to a comic, that's what my brain is looking for. Yeah, my brain's not looking for. It's almost like I have to shift gears. And I hate it when I say things like this that make me sound, they date me. But it's almost as though my brain has to shift gears. Okay, now I have to look at the picture, and I have to notice all of these little things that are in the picture, and now I have to apply the words to the picture, and it is just a little unnatural for me. Now I must say that my best friend, since we were 10, so you'd think, this 40 years of best friends, we should be very, very alike. She loves them. She started reading graphic novels with her children, and loves them. Was able to make that leap. I'm just trying to explain. This is why for some people it's not. It is not the best way for you to communicate it. For me to receive a message.
I think. I mean, part of that's like what you said, you're a kinesthetic thinker, I'm more of a visual thinker, so there's always going to be that difference. But I think also part of that's got to be just the quality of what you're reading as well. I think that, I mean, I'm not sure what you've read, but I would guess that there's probably better examples out there for you to try to sink your teeth into. And, you know, it's the same thing with any medium. If it's the first time that you're getting into it and it's honestly just not a great version of that medium, it's going to be hard for you to get into the medium at all to begin with, just because what you're reading is not all that good. So again, I'm not sure what you read, and again, there's always going to be that difference, but I think that, and like I said, a lot of cartoons, a lot of graphic novels don't try to take that extra step to really engage in a real way. They're caught up in character and fantasy and, you know, whatever, but it doesn't really do it for a lot of people. But there's no reason why cartoons can't do that. Just because a lot of them don't. There's no reason for them. There's no reason why they couldn't. It just, I think it really just takes a little more effort, a little more thought, and maybe a different approach. Not just saying, oh, it's just a cartoon. We don't really need to worry about those sorts of things. These are just for kids. They're not necessarily just for kids if you take that extra step. So. Yeah.
Well, and I respect people. I know people that I respect who are into it, so I know there's a lot more to it than I've been able to glean thus far. I think I need a really good reason to sit down and get myself past, you know, the 100-page mark. So when your book comes out, you just let me know, and then I'm going to say,
and then you can review me.
I will. And you can rebut me if you want. And I do have to say I really appreciated that you gave me an opportunity on Inhonolulu Magazine.
I mean, I love getting letters to the editor, honestly. Even if they are saying nasty things about what I wrote, it's still, I mean, it's just definitive proof that someone out there is reading what I'm writing, and that's just, even if the letter disagrees with everything that I wrote, it still kind of feels nice that someone read that and cared enough to send me something in response to it. So I love letters to the editor.
Okay, good. Keep them coming. I'll write them even for your the nice reviews, the good reviews, the positive ones.
Cool.
So what do you feel like you have to say?
With art?
Just in general, in general. What is WIll Caron saying? You're bringing current events. Do you enjoy the political writing that you're getting into with Ikaika more so than the fluff? Can I say that? Come on.
The artsy-fartsy stuff.
Well, when you're just talking about where to go and what to do and what to eat.
I think when I first started, I did not like writing the stuff for Ikaika as much. Not that I didn't like it. At the weekly, I was doing some of both. I was an associate editor of arts and culture / news. So I did the news diary entries that were always on like the second page of the weekly, those short little news thing that I did those. But then I would also do some film reviews and other stuff like that. And I think I always, at that time anyway, certainly thought that I liked the arts and culture stuff a lot better. As I've been getting more into it, and let me preface that by saying a lot of that is because that scene is easier to get into. With politics, there's so much history and there's so many twists and turns and connections that are, you know, under the surface that you can't see, obviously, that things will happen, and if you don't have that context, if you don't have that history in your mind, you're going to be so lost. And that was me for a lot of the beginning of writing for the weekly and then for Ikaika. I had to sort of cut my teeth. I had to really like get into the culture of it, and you know, just hang out at the Capitol for a while, and you know, meet some people, meet some politicians and some other journalists that are doing that and that are better than me at that. And then as that went on over the course of the year, I've been enjoying myself more and more doing it, and I think I've therefore been writing better and better articles too, more informative, but also just more enthusiastic about it too. So at this point, I think it's kind of about even. I love running in Honolulu. I love being a leader and a manager and an editor of other people's writing as well. And I knew that as soon as I came out of Kaleo that was something I liked doing. But I also like just being a correspondent for Ikaika and going out and sitting in as boring as it sounds, sitting in like a Board of Land and Natural Resources hearing for 3 hours with my tape recorder on, taking pictures and writing notes down every once in a while, and then going back to the Box Jelly, which is a great co-working place. I didn't mean to plug that, but I kind of did.
That's cool. Plug them.
Going back to Box Jelly and you know, banging out an article, and that's good fun too now at this point. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a bad life you got there.
Yeah, no, it is not a bad life, yeah.
How is Inhonolulu supported? You don't have ads on there, do you?
No, we don't have ads. We're, like I said, we're very new in that. Actually, I have to really thank all of my writers for really just doing it for not really any real compensation for, you know, I mean, every once in a while we can, but a lot of the times they'll just do it because they love doing it too, and they believe in what we're doing, and so they're all incredible for doing that. You know, I have some other perks that I can throw them, like getting them into events for free and things like that, so that they can cover it. And a lot of times that's enough for them to really be like, okay, that sounds good, that sounds fun. But other than that, really, you know, we're working with this partnership with The Independent, and Ikaika's selling ads for something called Summit, which is a print magazine, but it's representative of these different publications coming together. It's sort of a concrete, solid version of that sort of partnership. So you've got content in Summit from Inhonolulu, you've got content in it from The Independent, you've got content in it from The Hum. And so he's working on selling ads for that, and we're a part of that. So it's all sort of in the beginning stages. And then on top of that, I believe our publisher is going to sign a contract with a company called Mu Beta Solutions, and they're going to basically sort of take a look at our financial side of things and give us some advice and help us sort of jump up to the next level. Yeah, so that I can start compensating the writers with what they actually deserve to be compensated with. Yeah. So.
Cool. Yeah. So it sounds like you're right where you should be after a year and a half.
I would definitely like to be ahead of where we are, but I think that you have to sort of have that mentality, otherwise you are not going to get anywhere. So
yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciated the conversation.
Me too.
I have some things I'm going to read now, and we got to wrap up.
Okay.
Well, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater, in case I haven't mentioned that earlier. This is Center Stage on the ThinkTech, the ThinkTech Hawaii series. I would like to thank you for being here. I would like to thank Marshall Collins, our stage manager, our production manager, Ian Davidson, our communication director, Chrissy Goffigan, and Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. WIll Caron, I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week on Center Stage. Bye.